and welcome to another session. Um, in this session, we'll be doing something quite straightforward and simple and easy to achieve. It's called the text portrait effect using Adobe Photoshop. So I decided to pick up the portrait of Professor Wole Soyinka to apply the text effect and arrive at this. Okay, so whatever we'll be doing, everything I'll be applying, every effect, every step, every layer will bring me to this or something close to this. If I replicate everything I did 100% without missing a step or without um, tweaking my steps. So the first thing, okay, to achieve that, there are three main phases to everything we will be doing, right? I've divided everything into three phases. The first phase is to create a displacement map. I will explain what that is and what it does. Number one, create a displacement map. Phase two, we will work on the typography, the text that will be laid over this image or on this image or attached to this image to achieve the effect. And then the last phase, the last thing we will be doing is mapping the edited text. Whatever we've done to the text, the last stage will be to map it on this portrait, and then we will arrive at this. Okay, so now I said the first phase will be to create a displacement map. What is a displacement map in Photoshop? So a displacement map is a kind of instructional effect you give, um, a form of instruction that you give Photoshop that, look, this particular image I'm working on, in the future, the effect I will be applying to this image will require me to work around some edges that are not exactly flat. At some point, I would need to do some things around some contours, some edges, and I want it to be as realistic as it can be. I want to create a form of texture that whatever I'm laying on my image will stick to the shape of the image. So once I create my displacement map, three things happen. It interprets the white part of that image. You will understand why I'm saying white, and then the black part of the image, and then the gray part of the image. So it will interpret these three parts of the image because to achieve this effect, we will be converting our image to a grayscale mode or black and white. So the image is already in black and white just like mine, then good to go. If it is not, then the first step is to convert it to black and white. So once we've converted an image to black and white, there will be only three colors. That's white, as you can see in the air, then black in the background and gray somewhere around there. So I'll show you what how displacement map works with these three colors or what it tells Photoshop to do. So if you observe this image properly, you will see that the most part of it where there are some curves and bends and all are the white parts of the image. That is his hair, is the reflection of the light on his nose, right? And then his beards, predominantly these three places. So if you look at the black region, the fully black region, nothing is happening. So displacement tells Photoshop that when you see black, don't do anything. When you see white, that is probably the place that is popping out or the parts that are popping out of my image. But when you see gray, since it's not exactly black, let's still do something to it, still reveal my text or whatever effect I'm applying. But the main part I want you to focus on is the white part, or are the white parts of my image. That is what you creating displacement map does. That is what it tells Photoshop to do. So that's why the first phase is very important to what we are doing. So straight to what we want to do. So if you've not converted your image, or if you are using a colored image, the first thing to do is to come over here and then, adjustments, and then black and white. So once you've done black and white, it automatically converts it to black and white. But of course, I'm using black and white already, so I'm going to delete this layer. So now that I have my black and white, the main image I'm working with, the next thing I want to do is to adjust the brightness and the contrast of the image. So why am I doing this? Again, is to control the white part, or the amount of whiteness I can have on my image, and the amount of blackness I can have on my image, and of course the gray part also. So again, I come to adjustments, and then I come to brightness and contrast. So what I want to do is to reduce my brightness slightly, and then to increase my contrast. So if it is too bright, and then we apply the effect, so the displacement map may give us an unrealistic effect of, you know, laying the text on it, and then we may not get the exact level of contours we're looking for around it. So brightness should not exactly be so high. So we'll control the level of the white slightly, and then contrast slightly. So now that we have a new layer of the brightness and contrast, this is before and after. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is to now come back to the original image you're working with. This is, it should say background. So one thing is important before you start. It's advisable that if this picture will be framed or printed, it's advisable you create a worksheet in the dimension first, and then bring your original image to the worksheet you've created and scale it accordingly, right? In my case, I'm working with a nice portrait, so this is looking like a size I would frame normally. So I don't need to resize or anything. So again, the picture will be my background. The last layer in my layer panel. So the next thing I want to do to it is to create or add a blur effect to it, and the type of blur effect I want to add to it is the Gaussian blur. So I come to filter, and then I come to blur, and then I come to Gaussian blur. Okay, so because um, the last thing I did with Gaussian blur was done in 10 pixels, right? So this is why I still have it as my default. So if you have yours somewhere else in a different place, just take it back and bring it to 10 pixels, right? So this is the amount you need to achieve this effect. 10 pixels, click OK, and then you have this. But don't panic, this is all you need. So what do you want to do now? You come to File and Save As. You're not saving exactly, you are just saving as. That is, you want to create a different file out of this current file you're working with. So if you save as, and then we will call it, let's just call it map, or displacement map, or anyone, .psd. Save it in a folder you can easily locate, because you'll be needing it later on. So now that you've saved it, okay, now that you've saved it, the next thing you want to do is to undo your blur effect, your Gaussian blur effect, because you're done with it, and you don't need it again for now. So you want to have your image in the original form it was before the Gaussian blur. So I'm going to undo Gaussian blur, and then I have my original image back. So now we are done with the first phase of creating our displacement map. So what we did by adjusting the brightness and contrast, as I said, is to control the white, black, and gray levels of this image. And then the next thing we did is to render the original image in a blurry format. That's applying the Gaussian blur to it and saving it in a different file. The file we saved that we called map.psd or displacement map.psd or anything.psd is the displacement map. That is the instruction we will give Photoshop later. So back to all the explanations I did, before starting anything, we have created a form of instruction, but we have not presented it to Photoshop yet. So now, the next thing we want to work with is the typography. So what will you work with? The text you work with. So to make my work easier, I already generated a block of text with um, Chat GPT, and I asked it to talk about Professor Wole Soyinka, give me some things. So I just come over here, copy my text, and then back to this place. So the next thing I want to do is I will not just be typing directly on the image. I'll come to my type tool and then create a text box um, over the image. Okay, should. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is to achieve this effect smoothly. You don't want to leave indentations, you don't want to leave hyphenation and all of this. You want your text to start on this line and end on this line. So how do you do that? You justify your text fully. So you come to the paragraph panel and then you click this full justification. Then you want to ensure that you are not checking this hyphenate option. So if you uncheck it, it means instead of breaking your words to the next line, it finds a way as to squeeze it to ensure that every word is fully accommodated on the line that they should be on. So okay, so this is the default text, and I'll paste what I've just copied and come back to my character. So one thing you want to work around for the typography is you want to ensure readability, and you also want to ensure that it gives you the perfect frame on the portrait. So how do you do that? The bigger the text, the more legible the bigger the size of your text, the more legible the font will be, right? But the smaller the text, the finer your portrait will be. Okay. Of course, you also don't want it to be so tiny, so I'll do something like 30 is not bad, or 24. Yeah. Okay. So of course I'm working with something random, so I'll just duplicate the text so I can fill up the whole screen and all. Okay. So let's save. Okay. Okay. So now I've justified my text, right? And then they have selected a typeface that will be bold and at the same time very clear. So I'm using Montserrat and I'm using the black style of it. Okay, so that's it. Then the next thing I want to do is to jump to phase 3. I'm done with phase 1, which is creating the displacement map. I'm done with phase 2, which is working around the typography I want to use, adjusting it to everything I want and all. So the next thing I want to do now I'm in phase 3, right, is mapping this text on the image I'm working on to achieve the final effect we're looking for. So still on this text layer, I want to come to filter again, but this time not blur, not Gaussian blur. We want to distort. So distort means you want to change something from its original form, excuse me, in a different form. I don't want to use the word scatter or from the usual meaning of distort, right? But distortion means you're changing something from its original form to something else. So what form of distortion do we want to achieve? Now we come to displace, right? So this is where displace we ask us that, okay, what instruction are you going to give me so that I can use it to displace or distort this text? Like, you're asking me to distort a text that is simply flat on this screen, but how do I do that? How do I know where to curve? How do I know where to bend? How do I know, um, what to um, spread on the image, and how do you want it to look like? What do you want your results to be? Now that Photoshop is asking us that, we will now link it back to the displacement map we created. Remember, I called it a form of instruction, right? So we will now tell it, you don't need to bother yourself. This is the instruction you need to follow, right? So it's asking us three options: to convert this text to smart object, to rasterize, or cancel. So the smart option is to convert to smart object, right? So that in the future we can, change some things about our text and it will still be editable in the future. So yes, convert to smart object. Then the default settings you'll find is the horizontal scale is 10, vertical 10. Just click on OK, and then it looks for where the displacement map is. So that is why you need to save it where you can easily locate it. And now I have it here, my map.psd that we created. And now, okay. So automatically, without doing anything, I can already see my text warping around the contours on his face. You can see this part on the nose, right? You can already see this part of it bending around his ear, and of course the black parts are just flat. Again, it works with white, black, and gray. For black, it does nothing. For white, it adjusts. For gray, slightly adjusts. So now that that part is done, we have our displacement map. It has obeyed the instruction we gave it, to adjust the text around the image we are working with. So the next thing we want to do now is to drag the main image layer. In my own case, that's my background. To drag it above the text layer that we just converted to a smart object and and clip it to it. So to drag it successfully, I need to unlock this and bring it here and then clip. So to clip, you either come to the middle of these two layers, hold on to your Alt on Windows or Option on Mac, and then once you have your icon changed to this case, you click, right? Another way to do that is to right click and come to create clipping mask. So now that you have clipped, we can already see what this thing looks like, or what we are trying to achieve, where we are going with this, right? But this is not looking exactly like this yet. That's because there is still one more step to go. And the last thing we need to do is to create a new layer. So in this case, I created the new layer and then it has automatically clipped itself to the text layer, but that is not where we want to bring it. We want to replace the last layer. Remember, the last layer was Professor Wole Soyinka's image, but we have taken it up, we have clipped it into the text effect layer that we've applied the displacement map. So now we need a new last layer. So in this case, this is our last layer, but it is still empty. You can tell that it is empty. So what do we want to do to it? We want to fill it with black. We want to fill it with black. So I'll come to this, I'll come here now and then I'll click my solid color. Okay, so solid color will ask me what color do I want to fill it with. What is the solid color? But in this case, I'm coming for black. Okay, so clicking black will bring me to where I'm going, and yeah, all things being equal, this is where I'm going. I've achieved my text portrait effect, except I still want to do some other things to make it, fit into my spec, give me better feel and all. But in its basic form, in its ordinary form, in its usual form, this is the text portrait effect applied to a normal picture, a clear picture. And I think I forgot to mention this at the beginning. Ensure you're using a very, very clear image, preferably HD version of any image that can, boost the output or give it what it should look like. So now I'm done with what I'm doing, and then this is what we're sampling it um, against. So yeah, it looks pretty much the same, I think so. So yeah, that's it, and that's all. So if it's still looking like, oh, you can't see his face clearly, or the text is overwhelming and, covering up the actual face, you can't see clearly. So one thing you need to do is squint or try to close your eyes, but don't close it fully. Look at it and you'll see what we have hidden behind the text. So that will be all. Thank you.